everyone. Welcome to the San Diego Comic-Con 2021 panel on all things Vampirella. My name is Vincent Faust on behalf of Dynamite, and I'm joined by 5 fine folks familiar with the daughter of Draculon in different ways. And I will quickly introduce some of them. So Christopher Priest, kind of a big deal. You may know him from his acclaimed and influential work on Black Panther, Deathstroke, Captain America, Deadpool, Justice League, and much more. And recently we've somehow convinced him, when you add it all up, to write it'll end up being at least over 40 issues or so in Vampirella's world. So Priest, did I get anything wrong there?
No, except that I'm a much more spectacular writer than you laid out here. But
okay.
Anyway, hello, thanks for having me. Thank you.
And then I have here Tom Sniegoski and Jeannine Acheson have been handling a slightly different version of Vampy, as we like to give fans a lot of options here at Dynamite. Tom first wrote the character back in 1992, and I'm pretty sure must be the most prolific writer for the character if you do the math, which I still haven't done.
Terrible at math, so I couldn't tell you.
You're a writer.
Jeannine has joined him for the most recent Valentine's Day special, which fans seem to really like, and now the two of them co-writing are kicking the doors wide open with Vampiverse, which we will get into later. How are you guys doing?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Then I have here artist Meghan Hetrick, who used to be in the Priest corner a little bit more, doing wonderful covers for the flagship series. She's very talented using diverse media. She's used digital and traditional painting to do Vampirella covers, and also applies kind of those same principles to the pieces themselves. But now she's switching over for the moment to the Sniegoski camp to do covers for Vampiverse.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that.
You haven't seen them yet?
No.
And on that note, then we have Matt Idelson, who is an expert juggler, and he edits comic books. All right.
You need to be like he's a master cat wrangler, So.
Just a buck passer, thank you.
All right, let's kick things off and warm things up with kind of a very basic question. A lot of you guys were actually on the panel last year, the exact same panel, probably the exact same question, but just everyone who's watching this. So whether as a writer, an artist, a reader, a collector, an editor, what do you think draws people to Vampirella?
For me, it's people like the art. So like bluntly, they like the sexy character. So that's on the artist side of things. That's what people are drawn for.
I was always drawn to the badass aspect. I always, she looks awesome. She's sexy, but there's also an edge to the character.
Right. She's not your good girl type character.
No.
Right.
And you can do some really dark crap with her. So
you don't say.
Yeah, I know.
You'll have an inbox coming soon.
But I don't know why, but I've always seen Vampirella as being just this kind person and this a white hat, while her I don't want to say evil twin, because it depends on how you interpret it, but Draculina, who is a blonde version of Vampirella, she's much more malevolent. She is a definitely absolutely evil person who does evil things, while Vampirella, I never saw her as being evil. She's always been sort of like, if anything, she was fighting the darkness in Batman. But growing up, Vampirella was just one of those books I was really not supposed to be reading.
Yes.
And that's what made it so appealing, is that, you really shouldn't be reading this.
I wasn't even allowed to pick it up. I couldn't even go into the Riley's card shop. It was on the top shelf. You don't touch the things on the top shelf, kid.
Being short sucks, doesn't it?
Well, I'm not that tall, much taller now, so I'm still using the stool to get to the books at the top.
That's why they put it up there, so the kids, don't grab it.
Yeah, all the Warren stuff was on the top rack.
But see, the problem is that the world has become whatever the world has become. I mean, the real world, the world that we live in. I mean, to the point where I see more provocative outfits on YouTube, on rap videos.
That's true.
So her costume, which used to be sort of this very divisive element about the character, where some people didn't want to handle the character at all just because how she was dressed, or they wanted to put clothes on her, and once you put clothes on her, she's not Vampirella anymore. You know, nowadays I'm going, all right, so I'm watching like a Chris Brown video. I do not listen to Chris Brown's music. I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm not knocking Chris Brown.
No, it's not.
Okay, don't cancel me because of Chris Brown. He's a great singer. He can dance his behind off. He's a great guy. I'm sure he's a great guy. You know,
He beat his girlfriend.
well, you see, I didn't say that. See, I didn't go there. Let's leave that. You know, leave that alone. You know, but I was watching some Chris Brown video, and he goes to this party, and there's all these girls at this party, and these girls, they look like they're you know, they're 6 months out of Easy Bake Ovens and you know, and the Care Bears, and you know, they're very young girls. And Vampirella, please, I mean, what these girls have on is, or frankly, what they don't have on is, you know. So I think that oddly enough, the Vampirella, the classic Vampirella that we grew up with, or that certainly I grew up with, is far less controversial when placed in today's context. But back in the day when I was a kid, ooh, yeah, top shelf, yeah.
Yep.
I just read it the articles.
And on
I don't even remember seeing Vampirella. So I was mid to late 90s.
Oh.
You're also a woman,
So-
by the way. I hate to break it to you. You know, we don't miss
You
stuff
don't
like that.
say.
There's,
I didn't notice.
there's no way we walk into a comic shop and miss Vampirella. No. We were looking for Vampirella, believe me.
You obviously are not overly familiar with what I draw. Or me.
I'm looking forward to your big portrait of Priest. It's going to be.
all right, and on that note, Matt, how do you manage to wrangle all these crazy folks and somehow get comics out the door?
A lot of gifts.
A lot of gifts, a lot of subtle threats, emotional blackmail mostly. No, I mean, they're all professionals. It's just giving them deadlines and kind of keeping them on track. Going, surprise, now we're cutting 2 weeks out of your deadline, please. It's not my fault. And you know, there's not a lot of magic to it. You just beg them to be professional and then threaten to replace them when they're not.
Exactly.
Then you have people like Jeannine who just learning how to deal with the deadline.
Yeah.
She's never had deadlines before. She was a school teacher,
It's
so.
not this, yeah.
Well,
Oh,
the problem with deadlines is that you are now asking people to be creative on a particular timetable, and sometimes creativity just doesn't cooperate with you.
Yes.
Which is really annoying. You know, is that, you know, okay, I've got to turn this thing in. And sometimes the more pressure that is applied, the harder it is to conjure up something interesting or original. It's like your leg falls asleep, and the only way to get your leg to unfall asleep is to do the last thing you want to do is walk on it, but that's what you got to do. You got to get up and walk on it. So
I think that's a little bit of the difference, because that's when I contact Matt and like, Matt, I'm going to draw her sitting on a chair eating bonbons and drinking a glass of wine. Who knew that?
I'd buy that. That sounds like a great cover. I'd buy that any day. Yes.
So what you're saying, Priest, is it doesn't get any easier no matter how many years you do it?
No,
No,
it really does not.
absolutely not.
All right, so then on that note, so Priest, your flagship title kicked off our 50th anniversary celebration for the character in July 2019. And somehow time has flown by 2 years later with us approaching issue 25. So how do you think things turned out compared to your initial plans? And, you know, I'm sure you were rolling with the punches sometimes.
Well, yeah, I don't know that I would describe it as rolling with the punches. It's kind of like shooting the rapids. It was a very interesting, time. I didn't realize I'd actually be sticking around this long. But I'm looking at the entire 25 issues as basically Vampirella's 50th anniversary. We're not holding it to the linear year, but what delighted me, there were things that just surprised me. And I think the biggest surprise was my artist, Ergun Gunduz, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Ergun is, he's not a conventional comic book artist, but he reminds me more of something you might see in heavy metal or some sort of underground or alternative magazine. So he brought this whole different sensibility and sense of humor to the character So I think I just discovered myself having a lot more fun than I thought I'd have when Nick talked me into this, and just kind of really developing a very deep affection for the character and for the world. So yeah, it's been a fun little ride here, and I'm just very grateful that that Nick made the offer, and that I was smart enough to cave in. How's that?
Now, without getting super ahead of ourselves, so issue number 25 is going to be a big deal. You know, we're probably going to be hyping it up and announcing it and pushing it like crazy right around when this panel goes live. But it's also going to be leading into a brand new chapter of your work. So, what can you tell us about, you know, what's next for Vampirella fans on your front?
Well, we're planning a wedding. Vampirella is going to she is going to become Mrs. Vampirella. Actually,
her name.
Actually, we are marrying her off to Dracula. In a sense, maybe we think he's Dracula. He thinks he's Dracula. There's a prophecy that he is Dracula, and in an effort to thwart that prophecy and save the guy's life, the one way to thwart this curse, this Dracula curse, is through blood, through this union. So there's like a reason, a rationale where her decision to marry this fella is kind of a heroic gesture. But can Vampirella cheat fate? That's kind of the question that we have here. And that's where we are leading up to as we wrap up our 50th anniversary celebration with Vampirella issue number 25 of this run. On the other side of that, we will explore this relationship and play out this this gambit that she takes in order to rid the world of Dracula forever. Does she succeed? Does she fail? Is this guy Dracula? You know, so we have a bunch of alternate covers with a bunch of different Draculas, because this guy could be, what he will eventually turn into is anybody's guess. So he could be old Dracula, young Dracula, baby Dracula, you know, he could be Blackula for all we know. So we're getting a lot of great covers done, a lot of different artistic interpretations of the Dracula character and of the wedding. And unlike some other publishers, I guarantee you she will not be left at the altar.
Oh.
There you go, some shade there. And that leads us over.
I love you, Tom. I love Tom. I love you, Tom. Go. Sorry.
So Megan, I commented earlier how, especially with Vampirella, your covers have shown a neat diversity beyond the typical pinup style that many modern covers and honestly Dynamite are kind of known for. And you actually referenced the exact one I was thinking of earlier, because one of my favorites was you had Vampirella in sweatpants or pajamas watching TV. I don't remember, maybe she had some ice cream, but you also did a kind of Alfonso Mucha inspired piece. And I want you to kind of touch on, you know, how you go into those decisions and how you can kind of mold the character in different ways. And also, as we lead into the next part, how Vampiverse kind of just allows you to just completely further explore that.
So the question is what?
Yeah, I guess just talking the diverse,
how I kind of approach
artistic styles, you know, you can apply to the character, how you come up with some of those ideas, and how Vampiverse is, you know, giving you a new canvas to do that.
Honestly, I kind of go into it like, what would I like to see for the most part? It's just like, what do I feel like drawing today? So, and luckily Matt has been kind of awesome with let me just kind of take my little bat wings and go. So,
How you make deadline.
what's that?
It's how you make deadline. I do. I attempt to, at least, but no, it's just like, can I say the covers that I'm doing? Like, can I give the, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I did one that's like, for the Vampiverse stuff, I did one that's like a real pagan style, like, I called it the Bog Witch cover. Hold on one second, I gotta yell at a dog. Go lay down. Thank you. So I did like a pagan style Bog Witch, like just horns and antlers and all that fun crap going on. And then the one I just blinded everybody's eyes with was a cyberpunk one, like old school style cyberpunk, not not like, well, no, not old school, like the mid 90s cyberpunk style stuff. And then I've got
That's old school now.
right. Well, I think old school, and I'm thinking like Blade Runner, and I'm like, there's no noir to this. There's no, it's neon. It's very, very neon. It's very bright. But then I've got like a steampunk one and what the hell, like a pirate, I think I'm doing, a Norse Viking style one. I think that rounds up the couple that I'm doing right there. I don't know if there's any more.
Well, until we hit deadline, and then you'll do like garbage truck one and mailman Vampirella.
It would honestly, like, that might be something fun, like once this actually starts going out there, just ask fans, like, what era do you want to see her in?
Yeah.
That, because my fun comes in, I always wanted to go into character design. So I always like taking iconic characters and twisting their costumes a bit. And with Vampirella, there's not a lot of fabric that you can twist. So it's kind of fun going through and playing within those limitations to just have fun with it. So I actually do better with harsh deadlines and strict limitations than most people. Like, that's when I actually get creative, is when I have my limits set, because I'm like, how can I screw these over and beat around them a bit?
Tom and Jeannine, so let's bust Vampiverse right open. Megan's doing covers for it, but what's the deal here with this story? And also, as a fan, I thought it was really neat when I got the pitch that I saw that the working title, which we're not going with, was Death and Destruction 2. So I'm curious how this may connect to some of Tom's larger, extensive vampy bibliography that he's had through the years.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to start, since we're dealing with multiple Vampirellas, I wanted to pick a Vampirella from a very specific time point to be our focal character. So I grabbed the Vampirella from the end of the original Death and Destruction, who basically died and ended up in Eden with her mother Lilith, like living out the rest of her existence, like, but not getting the opportunity with the story of what Vampiverse is going to encompass. So that was the original take, because I wanted to find a Vampirella that I was comfortable with, but also a Vampirella that kind of hadn't had her story told, because basically she died at that point. And also, since my return to Vengeance of Vampirella, that was a resurrected Vampirella. So what I decided to do was, it's that time period between her resurrection in my current run and the ending of the original Death and Destruction, where she dies. So that probably sounds incredibly confusing, because I'm confused right now.
I think I have notes on that. Someplace.
Yeah, Jeannine, yeah. That's what Jeannine's got the notes, so
Yeah.
she'll keep us on track. But it spins out of there. It spins out of the death of Vampirella from the original Death and Destruction.
And then artist Daniel Main gets the treat or challenge of designing a lot of those alternate universe versions of the character. So I wanted to know, from Tom and Jeannine, how has it been working with him? And do you guys have any favorite Vampies that you've created with him so far that are going to be appearing in the series?
Jeannine has a. Which one's the favorite?
We haven't plotted anything for her yet, but the invisible Vampirella.
Yeah, there's an invisible.
For some reason,
Yeah.
she just strikes me.
And what's interesting about it is
Why didn't I think of that? Invisible Vampirella. That would save us so much time, man.
Easiest cover ever.
It's just the costume. It's the costume.
Yeah, it's so cool.
It's just the
Because
costume.
you still know it's her. She doesn't have the hair, she doesn't have the face,
It's
but
just the
you can
costume.
just tell.
The floating
it's
costume
her.
and boots.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, so that's a good one.
Yeah.
I actually, the cave woman one is actually really cool.
Yeah.
There's something kind of primitive and savage about
Yeah.
that one. I like that one quite a bit.
I like the pulp one because she's got really cool toys.
Right. We did one that was very similar to like combining with the shadow.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, we call her the vamp.
Yeah.
So she has kind of a neat pulpy look with the hat and the long dress and the guns and stuff like that. So that one's really fun too.
Great toy. Yeah. And Daniel's amazing.
Yeah, Daniel's
he came
really,
up with things that we didn't even think
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
So he's just so cool.
yeah, he's really good.
I thought Hari Krishna Vampy was a little bit Out there.
You know, that one we're going to do a spin-off.
Excellent.
I don't know. Now I'm thinking Jehovah's Witness Vampy, you know.
Well, maybe that could be the villain.
Yeah, she comes door to door.
All right, and then on that note, I guess we'll kind of head toward the end and wrap up. If everyone wants to, so we talked about a lot of things that everyone's working on right now that are coming out. You know, this panel will be going live in later July. We'll have things through October announced, and we tease things even past that. But I believe everyone here has things that they're even working on even further than that. So if everyone just wants to just super briefly, but also somehow like without totally on the nose, if people want to tease some of the things that are circulating even more down the line.
I'm not sure how I could tease the upcoming Draculina series that we're not supposed to talk about. So I'm not sure I could tease that.
There you go.
But you know, or the Vampirella Year 1 thing that's way too soon to announce that. I don't know how we tease this stuff.
We've got big scoops here.
We could tease in Christopher Priest fashion. We could possibly tease Panther that Jeannine and I are doing. So
It's coming up.
it's coming up.
We're excited.
We're excited.
Is she going to talk? You know, can we fight? Can we?
Wait, what? You don't want her to talk?
When she's in the cat form, when she's
No,
in
not in the cat form. No.
when she's walking around as a Black Panther, I can't have her be like Scooby Doo. You know, don't do that. I will fly out to wherever you are and beat you with a stick.
You
It's
can
gonna be
trust
like Goliath from Davy and Goliath.
Davy.
We're in hellfire for that.
No, she will not talk in animal form.
That's all I ask of you. That's all I ask of you.
Nope, she will not talk in animal form. I promise you.
Thank you, Tom. That's all
Yeah.
I ask.
On tape.
She might make it.
I
talk,
won't
though.
do that. I won't do that. It's in my notes. It's to not do that.
And I'm sure Megan has some beautiful covers coming up on, we mentioned Vampiverse and maybe others, TBD. And I guess I'll kind of, we'll close things with where can people find you guys if there's anything real quick you want to plug elsewhere, and then we'll just call it a day.
I am nowhere, but if you want to drop into ChristopherPriest.com, be my guest. But I am not on social media and happy to report that.
I'm all over the place. I'm the exact opposite of you. So just Google my name. It'll pull up pretty much everything that I'm on. So if it's a social media thing, I'm there in some fashion. So just remember to put the H in my name.
I'm everywhere. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. Where else am I? Want to call it a bigger for change?
That too.
That's good.
I'm nowhere. I'm new.
She's a newbie. She's
Yeah.
got to learn all this stuff. We got to teach her all this stuff. Self promote.
What about you, Matt? Are you on social media?
Yeah, are you
I never
anywhere,
asked you that.
Matt?
No, I'm just at the OTB.
All right.
That's great.
And
On that note,
I'm glad we were able to get Matt in here for the comedy relief. And now we'll close things out. Thank you everyone for joining us. Tom, Jeannine, Megan, Priest, Matt.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you
for having me.
everyone. And right now we're welcoming creator Ray Fawkes to the panel. And we see all the con goers around us. There's some people diving for back issues over here. I see some guy in a funky Deadpool cosplay. So obviously that's not the case. This is a remote recording because of the scenario that still exists in the world. So Ray Fawkes, we have here, creator, writer, artist. He's written for us Vampirella versus Purgatory, and the final issue, number 5, should be out July 14th, right around, probably right after you're seeing this panel when it actually releases. But we're recording ahead of time. However, drum roll, Purgatory number 1, a new series just with Purgatory, launches this October, and that should be announced right around this panel. You might be hearing about it for the first time right now. So we're going to kick things off with some quick questions, panel. So Matt, what drew you to Ray for these projects?
What doesn't draw me to Ray? I mean, really, look at that man. Look at that baby blue wall. I mean, Canada is beautiful. He's terrific. I've worked with him a lot starting at DC. It's always been a pleasure. I worked with him on the Gold Key stuff for Dynamite a few years ago when I came over, and that was pretty awesome. So why wouldn't I?
So Ray, you had an interesting take with your Vampirella story, incorporating bits of religious elements, which has been done with the character in the past, but often it's admittedly like in a kind of very basic demon type of stuff. So how did you come up with those elements and bring them into the story?
Well, to tell the truth, I mean, since I knew we'd be dealing with Lilith, I thought may as well go head back to like Old Testament kind of stuff, even Apocrypha. And I mean, you know, it's questionable whether Lilith herself believes in any of this stuff. So I thought would be kind of fun to have her messing with sort of biblical end of the world kind of scenario, but also herself kind of treating it like it's just a game. It's not even real to her.
And so now that you've already had some time with Purgatory, how are you looking to expand on that as you take her into her solo venture, as it were?
Oh man, well, I mean, first of all, Purgatory is just tons of fun. She's hilarious and sexy and weird and definitely crazier than most of the characters in the Vampirellaverse Purgatory book, which means that on her own she gets to cut loose a bit and be even weirder, which is great. But also she has like the most bizarre curse of any vampire character I've ever seen. She actually, when she kills somebody, if she drains them dead, she gains their memories and abilities, which is like, seems really cool, but also it's kind of like looking down the barrel of the gun that shoots you afterwards, if that makes sense. So, you know, when I first read about Purgatory and I first read the comics way back when, I was like, man, this is a person who should be way more nuts than she seems to be, considering that she's got 2,000 years of the memories of being murdered by herself under her belt. So I thought it would be really cool. And I talked to Matt about doing a series about Purgatory and getting inside her head a little bit, so that on the outside, we get to see her sort of fun-loving self as usual, but on her inside, we get to see what she has to do to keep herself kind of happy and you know, the fun character we know, when inside her head, she's got maybe 10,000 people's entire lives.
It's almost like a split personality thing, but not quite on that level. So you mentioned Lilith, of course, earlier, and obviously this is spinning out of a Vampirella story. Just real quick, and maybe the answer is no. Can fans expect to see any kind of other like little cameos or guest stars or anything, either from the Vampirella side of things or from, you know, the Chaos corner?
That stuff is all sort of tied into Purgatory's world, but she also kind of, she is her own thing, you know, so I'm never going to say no. Those characters definitely can pop in once in a while, but this story is really about a focus on Purgatory and what she's all about.
So then additionally, Alvaro Saraseca is returning on the art, which is nice for consistency, bridging the two tales that you're doing back to back. But how has it been working with him, and also, you know, knowing that he's back on this title?
Well, I'm super happy about it. Actually, the first thing I asked Matt when we started talking about doing the Purgatory book is, can we keep Alvaro? Can we continue with the same look? And he said, yeah, of course. And I love it. I love what he's been doing on Vampirellaverse Purgatory, and I'm sure I'm going to love it just as much on the Purgatory book.
That's great to hear.
There's a direct linkage between the end of this Vampy series and the Purgatory solo. So, I mean, it makes sense, and it just sort of builds on itself. So why wouldn't you keep the same team together?
Yeah, that being said, of course, you know, like any comic, it has a number one on the cover. So if you missed the previous series, definitely jump right into this one, or hit the back issue bins, wait for the trade, you know, or do that after you read this new one. You know, we at Dynamite, we try and make, you know, all of our first issues and your new series very approachable, and I'm sure Ray and Matt, of course, you know, have that in mind. And so make sure you pre-order your books and everything. And then we'll kind of leave off with Matt. If you want to give us some name drops on some of the great cover artists we'll have on this series. And then if you want to mention, you know, our hardworking, very talented colorists and letterer who are likely to be on the series if they're attached yet. And then Ray, if you have any quick comments as we close off.
truth be told, I'm still assembling the cover lineup. It's going to be as similar as possible to the prior series, but I'm not entirely sure yet who can commit and who can't, so I don't want to erroneously name drop. As far as the interiors, yeah, Salvatore Ayala is going to continue with the colors, and not Thomas, that's his email, but Tom Napolitano is continuing with the letters. The team worked really well together, which is fun when people get along and actually interact like human beings. So they'll be back for the ride too, and hopefully they won't hate me by the time this is over, but they will.
Yeah, just a quick note,
Yeah.
Like Matt said, we're still assembling things. We're recording this quite ahead of time, but just some teasers you may see on the covers, just since he said, trying to get similar names. So on the first series, we had, Joseph Michael Linsner. We had Madibek Musabekov, who's done some great work for us recently. We had Carlo Pagulayan, who people may know from like stories like Planet Hulk or Deathstroke recently from DC Rebirth. Simone Kudransky, Jimmy Broxton, Russell Fawkes, lots of great artists, Daniel Main. I'm probably missing several more. You know how the Dynamite works. If you're a Dynamite reader, lots of great covers. So Ray, any final thoughts on the series? Either the one that we're wrapping up. I mean, I'm not sure where you're, what stage you are. Obviously, we're recording this quite ahead of time. And then the series that's upcoming that fans can look forward to.
Well, first of all, I'm really happy with the reaction people have been having to Vampirella versus Purgatory. I think it's really cool to see, people being into our take on these characters and the story. And I just want to tell people, Matt and I have been going over the Purgatory plot and the script has started up, and I just think it's going to be a ton of fun, and it's going to be, what did I say, Matt? Bloody mayhem. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
Everyone, thanks for quote unquote coming to this panel. Thanks, Ray, for joining us, talking about the new series, and Matt as well for the comic relief. And we'll catch you on other parts of this panel, our other panel, and virtually, socially distanced at this year's San Diego Comic-Con. Thank you guys again for joining me on this adventure.
Thanks, everyone. Hope we can do it in person next year.